Hi, how are you? It's Marie Fleming here, and welcome to video number 1 of the Sometimes Shit Happens video series. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about what I now refer to as the 5-year hangover. And it's got nothing to do with alcohol, funny enough. It's something entirely different. So in 2010, I was working as a lawyer, a child protection lawyer, and I'd been doing that for, been in the legal world for a few years. It taken me a long time to qualify, and I'd worked my way up through all of the hoops and everything I had to jump to get there, and I finally made it. And so I've been working in the child protection area for a few years, and it was basically when I hit 30 and my health just started to deteriorate, and I woke up. I used to wake up feeling really tired, really kind of exhausted, even though I'd have rested, even though I did look after myself as much as I could, and I used to go to sleep on time, and I'd wake up in the mornings feeling completely exhausted. So it got to the point that by the time my 30th birthday came around that year, I had all these nights out planned and lined up, and I had to cancel them all, and I just basically had to stay in and really just rest and recover. So I carried on feeling ill. My health started deteriorating. So by the following year, I just thought, it's just being a lawyer. It's part of the job. This is what it feels like to, work your ass off. And everybody's exhausted. Everybody around me was tired, but, they seemed to be getting on with it. So I carried on pushing myself. And I told myself that maybe a holiday would do it. So I took myself off on holiday with my daughter and my partner at the time, and thinking a break would do it, but still nothing changed. So when I came back off the holiday, I carried on working, threw myself into everything, and basically, to cut a long story short, it got to the point that my body really started to suffer, and what was just exhaustion and tiredness tipped over into something completely different. It went into real fatigue, pains in my body. I had headaches where it kind of almost felt like there was a vice like cracking the sides of my head. It felt so painful, and I just started getting really anxious. There was anxiety. I would be jumping, just at the least little sound. I was so tired out, but I couldn't sleep. I couldn't switch my mind off. So my mind would be racing. I'd be exhausted every single day, but yet I couldn't sleep and I couldn't switch myself off. What happened was then my body started not to work properly. My digestion started getting all messed up completely. So after another year of pushing and another year of ignoring the symptoms and just carrying on thinking that everybody feels like this, I got to the point, it was summer of 2012, and I got to the point that I couldn't get up off the sofa. And I was watching the Olympics. I remember looking at all these athletes thinking, wow, they're so incredible with what they do with their bodies. And there I was, lying on the sofa, and I couldn't even get up to get a drink without a lot of effort and a kind of dragging myself off the sofa because it was so painful and exhausting. So carried on working, still carried on doing it, and later that year I eventually got diagnosed with ME, which is chronic fatigue syndrome. And this is a funny illness because it's basically, well, one a lot of people don't recognize what it is. 2, they think that it's just tired. No, you're just tired. Everybody gets tired, and there's not a lot of understanding around it. And 3, a lot of the times it's an invisible illness. It's one of those illnesses that you might look like you look, but you don't look ill. So it was almost like the outside of you didn't quite match the inside. So I remember, going to work, say on the tube, and I'd be standing there. It was rush hour, and almost feeling really, I was so exhausted. I used to hang on to the pole, and sort of stand there, and almost felt so resentful of everybody around me on the tube, because I used to think, why, if anybody knew how awful I felt and exhausted and in pain I felt, and dizzy and sick and all of these symptoms, somebody would let me sit down, and I didn't ask, I didn't look at anybody, but I used to feel so exhausted and ashamed of myself because I used to think I was lazy. So after I got diagnosed and I read up about it and I understood the condition, I was told basically by the NHS they offered 2 things. 1 was antidepressants, and 2 was counselling, just to talk about it. And I found neither of those to be very effective. And I started going into I suppose what I'd call is a really deep, dark depression for a while. And I'd come back from work, drag myself from work and just burst into tears and just not really feel like there was anything worthwhile about me anymore. And it got to the stage that it got so bad, I ended up having to quit my job, quit my legal job. I'd recently got a new job where I had even more money coming in, and it was so difficult to have to walk away from it. And it was then that things got really dark. So, you know, I was in a position where I'd lost my job, I couldn't work, I had no money, I had no income at all, you know, coming in. I'd lost the status of my job, which I used to really use as a label, partly to do with having a child so young, which I'll talk about in another video. But I used it as a status, and that was my security blanket. So I lost that. I lost my social life. I couldn't go out anywhere. I couldn't relate to people. I was too tired to speak. Sometimes I couldn't speak. It was so exhausting. And it felt like this massive hangover. That's the way I describe it. It felt like waking up, you know, when you've had loads to drink, and you wake up and your head is spinning and you feel sick and you can't move and you just feel disgusting. It was like that for about 5 years with flu and maybe a bit of jet lag. That's kind of how it felt in the body with no let up. So I lost everything. On top of that, I lost my relationship, which was really hard after 4 years of being with somebody. That fell away as well. And there was a lot of pain, there was a lot of anguish, a lot of anxiety, and some really dark times. And it was one afternoon when I was sitting there and I was contemplating my life, and I remember feeling like, if I'm not out there and I'm not working, I'm not producing anything, I'm not being helpful to anybody, there's no point to me, why am I here? And it wasn't a dramatic kind of scene, but it was a very quiet internal feeling, very scary, because it was like, well, what is the point of me? And maybe I should check out, maybe I shouldn't be here anymore. And I had those thoughts for quite some time, you know, about, is there any point? Should I carry on? And something went off in my head. There was some sort of thought, or whatever you want to call it, I don't know what it is, but something deep inside me said, no, you know, there must be a way. There must be a way. So I had a little bit of energy, the tiny bit of energy I did have. I researched into places, found an amazing clinic called the Optimum Health Clinic in London, in Archway, and found this whole place where they are a team of people who had recovered. And they were the first people I ever met who had recovered from ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, rather than just managing their symptoms. So, you know, that led me to becoming a patient there. I threw all my money that I did have onto their program and worked my way through it, went on this whole self-development journey, and that led me to loving coaching and NLP and hypnotherapy and emotional freedom techniques and all this amazing stuff that I now use with my clients, because it was so valuable to my recovery, and it was the thing that really got me to clear out all the stuff that I'd been carrying around with me, which I'll talk about in some of the other videos. But it wasn't until I really looked at myself and went inside for the first time and realized that my value comes from me. It doesn't come from outside. It doesn't come from the job titles and the money and the stuff on the outside. You know, you can be valuable just because you're here and you're breathing and you're alive. And that might sound funny to some of you, but once you lose everything on the outside, you really learn that. So one of the lessons I learned from the whole experience was, one, value your energy. Your energy is the most important thing that you have, I think, because without energy, you cannot do anything. And I had no energy for several years and I could do nothing. So I value my energy. See the good that you have inside you, irrespective of what you're doing out there. Yes, life can always be better, but you are a valid person just by being a human being and showing up in this world, you know. So that's some of the stuff I learned from having ME, and today I really live my life in a very different way. I appreciate all my energy. I appreciate getting up in the morning with my health, and I think that's a really good lesson to learn. So if you're out there and you're struggling in some way in terms of your health, know that it doesn't have to be permanent, and there are options out there, and there are always ways to navigate yourself through it so that you come out stronger than you are, stronger than you went in. So that's today's video, and I will look forward to speaking to you shortly on video number 2. So for now, take care, and I'll talk to you again very soon.